welcome to the Unconsumed Podcast. I'm here with my good friend and co-founder of the Unconsumed Podcast, Chris Ryder. Chris, thanks for coming on, man. It's good to have you back because you and I started this podcast in an Amazon conference room.
We're saying that now? It was actually an Amazon conference room?
Yeah, I guess we can say it now.
We can say it.
Because I don't work at Amazon anymore.
Yeah, true.
But you do, so...
I do. I'm fine.
We're good. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So, basically... it's awesome to have you back on because we started this out in a conference room, and it was like if you go back and you watch episode 1 with us, and we were talking about things that were overrated, like the camera was in
like portrait
mode,
yeah.
And it was brutal, but it was like the entry into something that has been a ton of fun since, right?
Yeah.
So it's like anytime you're starting out anything new, and that's kind of what the podcast is all about now, is like when you start something new, there's all of the growing pains associated with like stepping out from explored territory into unexplored territory, and then figuring out how to make it work. So like we've had 6 episodes in this new variance so far, and each story is pretty cool because it's people figure things out in really amazing ways, and then the stories are fascinating. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, I don't know why you want to bring that to a screeching halt by having me back on. It's just going to go back to what it was, which is nobody watching. It's going to, we need to do this in a conference room again. No, this is really fun for me to be on as well. We did 10 in the conference rooms.
Right.
A lot of funny stuff we talked about. I had a great time with it. And then I leave, and my gosh, you have like Adam... You've got like 19 screens. You have lights and cameras. This is amazing.
Yeah, so one of the things that the podcast is doing right now is we have some sponsors, and thank you so much to the sponsors because they've allowed this to go from when you and I were doing the podcast, it was simply a camera, the cell phone camera.
Yep.
And now we've got the same camera as Joe Rogan himself, which is pretty cool for the podcast world. And slowly we'll upgrade things. And so if you're enjoying this, and I got to get this in because it's one of the biggest stall outs on the podcast right now is if you haven't hit that subscribe button, it's very important that we get to 1,000 because then we can monetize, which is YouTube's way of saying, hey, you have to become big enough so that we can even sell ad space for you. So essentially, if you just hit the subscribe button and we get to 1,000, then we'll roll little banner ads, and the podcast can get a few dollars, and then you'll see all the cameras and stuff get better and better. And I have an overall goal of A, being able to fly guests in from around the country, and then B, to build a new studio, which would be absolutely epic.
You know what I think is, so I know you pretty well. I've watched some of the new podcasts as well, and you take, whatever is available and put it back in. You're not like, you don't have a new car because you have a podcast that now has sponsors. Like you get a better camera, you get better ops, you're looking at flying people in and getting good guests. I mean, that's really cool. It's fun to watch.
The goal of the show...
I'm so glad to be zero part of all this success, Lee. I got to be honest with you.
Oh, come on, man. So I'll answer it in 2 parts. So the goal of the podcast is to have as much fun as we can possibly have with whatever we have available. And it seems to be a pretty low-hanging fruit way of getting dollars in the door, simply to have... Every time someone clicks, someone's willing to flip us a penny and a half.
Yeah.
So, that being said, the other part of this is that if we can do this thing and have a great time and still be able to up our quality constantly, game on. That's what we're after. So
it's going well. It's been fun to watch.
And the second thing I wanted to say is you absolutely are a part of this, because if you hadn't have said, okay, yeah, I'll do a podcast with you, you idiot. Then none of this would have happened. So thank you sincerely for that.
Thanks for inviting me back. As I said, I'll come on whenever you'll have me.
We'll love to have you.
Make sure you get like good guests in between. That way, we throw people for a loop whenever I'm back on.
So humble, Chris Ryder.
Thank you.
So
that's not a compliment. I don't know why I'm thanking you for it.
Well,
it's just a commentary.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I will say? One of the things I love about this shot is I've got MJ over my shoulder. This is incredible.
Not a bad wingman to have.
We were just talking about my affinity for his shoes.
Yes.
In my lifetime, and It's like he's riding shotgun for me back here.
Well, you know the funny thing about that stand-up is he's not even wearing Jordans.
I was going to mention that. You know what he's wearing?
Pennies.
That's right, yeah.
Penny Hardaway, for those that don't.
But I don't know the story behind that. If they like photoshopped him over Penny's feet, or if he didn't have his shoes that week.
So my guess is it's made by Upper Deck, which is a semi-defunct basketball card maker, and I don't think they had rights to print Jordan's shoes. What they had was rights to print his likeness.
So they had NBA rights. They didn't have Nike Jordan rights.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that was an extra cost that they were like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I used to have a giant Shaquille O'Neal. I was 7'1" and 300 pounds of cardboard man.
The cardboard is 300 pounds also?
Very heavy.
Yeah, it had some girth.
So that was awesome. But yeah, so the thing I wanted to, because we are taking a little bit more of a serious tilt here, and
rein me in. Sorry.
No.
I know.
We're joking around. That's our motif for all time. But you are one of those guys that I've seen in our careers, and you and I have worked at Tableau Software together, also at Amazon, and been able to traverse the world of software sales pretty well. And so the end goal is, in all of this hustle, is to be able to retire someday. And you have got the plan better than almost anyone I've seen in the space lined up how you're going to get there. And I thought it would make a ton of sense to have you on, because you are the guy who's got this best planned out and taken almost no risk in doing it. So, like, hit me with the stats on how it's done.
Okay, yeah. I do have this plan to retire. I'm 42 right now. I just turned 42, by the way, like a week ago.
Happy birthday. I think I said that on the internet, right?
I don't know. I don't go on the internet as much.
Well, then yes, I did.
Yeah, then I absolutely did. And I have this goal to retire at 50. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do. It's just what I want to do. Right. You know, like, I think there's a really good argument to be made. Like, should you bust your butt and have this goal for later in life? Or should you, like, spend and enjoy life as you go through it? Like, both of those are potentially right, or neither. But I wanted to try to retire before I, was too old to enjoy it. And secondly, I've had this mindset, like, if I go gamble at a blackjack table, right, I'm not going to sit there and just try to accumulate more and more and more and more, because eventually you're going to bust. Right. So I have this idea in mind when I sit down and say, what's enough? Okay, like, if I'm going to start with $100, like, what's enough for me to get up and walk away? 300? So I make $200? Right. Then great, get up and walk away when you get to 300, because otherwise you're just going to sit there until forever. And so I kind of thought that way about retirement, because if we're just chasing money and chasing success, like, it's never enough. It's never going to be enough. Right. So my idea was, what do I want to live off of? Like, what's my quality of life I want in retirement, and what amount of money do I need to save and have in order to live off of just that? So I built a model basically that targeted, this dollar amount per year to live off of like it was income, and said, okay, to get that in interest, so I got to earn that in interest off of my cash. Right. So
what's the rate that never kind of built in?
Well, so prior to retirement, so the model has a pre-retirement plan. So like right now, I'm should be in a more aggressive earning mode because I'm not using that as income. So that's around 8%. And then once I retire, it's like 4.5%. Okay. So it's assuming that once I get to retirement and that's my actual income, I can't be in, as aggressive a portfolio.
Yeah, you're not buying penny stocks and stuff at 80.
Yeah, right. So the model is basically, live off of the interest, and whatever age you want to set as your target or dollar amount you want to set as a target, you can back into, okay, how much do I need to save every year? So the two keys I would say are make as much money as you can make, and save as much money as you can save out of that. Right. And so, that may you know, the more you can save, the earlier you can retire. And especially if you start in your 20s, I mean, that's the real key, is starting early. It just compounds.
Yeah, so in preparation for today's podcast, last night I was watching a bunch of videos, and YouTube is packed with videos on like how to make passive income.
Yeah.
Because everyone's pitching like a multi-level marketing thing that you can do. And that's, I'd say 999 times out of 100 complete garbage.
Right.
999 out of 1,000. So what is very interesting though is that you can have things that make money on the side that are passive income streams like real estate or stocks and things like this. Stuff. This one guy was pitching the idea of getting vending machines in different cities, and I was like, that would have been awesome in like 1980.
Yeah, we talked about that once.
Really?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, I got some vending machines in Cincinnati.
I gotta go up and empty the change out.
But yeah,
it's a $600 ticket.
I remember us having a joke about this, but it came up last night, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, where have I heard this?"
Yeah.
And now it's coming full circle, live on the podcast. So yeah, I think there's like a really interesting dichotomy that exists in the retirement world. It's like, so my dad has always been one of those guys being like, "I'm never going to retire. Like, what would I do? Like, it would just be a waste of time." Like, and I think that is balanced with, well, there's the other guy who's like, all I want to do is retire. I want to do nothing. That's like my whole goal in life is to do nothing. And I think there's this balance in the middle, and I think you'd be a good ear to bounce this off. Is I don't want to be obligated to work. So I want to go out into the world and do well enough so that I am not. There's no. I'm not compelled to like make sure that I'm making a certain amount of dollars every year, because I've planned ahead and I've thought ahead enough where here's the money I need to do my thing, and then if I don't want to work, I don't have to.
Yeah.
And I will probably, but
that's what it is. It's the choice. And you know, if you've been like, the chances are, if you've worked really hard to retire at some age and aggressively saved and aggressively worked and, you know, been diligent about the jobs that you take and how well you do them, it's unlikely that you're going to be comfortable just, you know, watching Matlock all day, right? You're going to want to do something.
You're going to be hardwired to want to do something, have a purpose, and things like that. Yeah.
But it might be that the
Matlock.
things. Yeah, I love Matlock. By the way.
Do you really?
Whenever I would stay home from school, like in high school or something, that. If Matlock came on, I felt like I was at home when I shouldn't be at home. And it was a good feeling.
Yes.
You know?
It's like you're cheating the system a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm
Matlock.
sick watching Matlock. Matlock makes me feel like I'm getting away with something.
Well, I'll send you the box set as a gift for coming on the podcast.
That would be great. I don't know what I'll play it in.
That's a good point. I'll send you a USB.
Yeah, there you go.
With the torrent files on it, because it's a low budget.
Yeah. And it's low quality, I'm sure. But but it's then doing something that you care about doing, or that, you know, you have a different approach to. You know, we talked about, you know, being the guy with nothing to lose, and, you know, that changes your attitude, and that confidence, you know, impacts the success you have, for sure. Yeah,
so this is something I learned in a trading pit early on, is that when you have to make money, you're going to do a garbage job. If you have to win. And people talk about this in sports sometimes. It's like, this is a must-win game.
Yeah.
Then how much more pressure is on there?
Right.
So, like, if in the times in my career when I've done the best is when I've had enough success and I'm feeling the confidence off those prior successes where I can feel free to throw the fastball.
Yeah. If I don't get this one, I get the next one.
Yeah. Or you know, hey, I'll keep swinging the bat because I'm pretty good. You know.
Yeah.
It's a arrogant thing to say when you say it out loud, but if you're saying it to yourself, you're like.
I mean, it's confidence, and it absolutely impacts the results, I think.
Absolutely.
My whole thing is just like anything. I mean, it's sort of cliche, but you have to have some idea. You have to have some plan. I'm always surprised when I talk to folks that are even do what we do and had, you know, above average opportunities, you know, in life, that they're 50, 55 and don't have a plan, like haven't started to, you know, my dad, I remember talking to him when he was in his early 50s, and they had just gone to a retirement planner, like a financial advisor, and I was like, wait a second, you just now considered this? You're It's a couple years away. What's going on?
Right.
So, like, think about it as early as you can think about it. There's a great Chinese proverb. I think it's a Chinese proverb. It says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So if you didn't get to it, great. Start now. It's better than tomorrow. It's better than 2 years from now.
I think were you going to say something, Adam? Okay. I think in like the modern age, people are thinking, they have the tools to think ahead more than they did. But I guess it's like, or they have accessibility to those things, because it used to be you had to call, like, picture 1970. Like, you had to call someone who knew what they were doing, and they cost money, and you might not do that by virtue of the fact that they cost money. But now everything's on the internet.
Yeah.
We say this all the time in this podcast. It's like, hey, I wanted to learn to know how to do something.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, I didn't go to college for that, or I didn't know how. And I was like, it's a YouTube video.
Yeah, you don't have to know anymore.
There's tons of sites where, like, you can get the best guy in the whole world at that specific thing to make a video for you to show you how to do it.
Yeah.
So, like, if you want to learn how to retire, like, you can get the best math on the planet available with a spreadsheet already made for nothing.
This is the thing I nerd out on most. Retirement, golf, and shoes, and potato chips.
Well, I would escalate potato chips.
Yeah, those aren't in the right order. Retirement's probably fourth on that list, to be honest with you. But there are a million of those out there if you go Google them, and they're all pretty much the same, because it's a pretty simple formula. You put in how much you want to have, an expected rate of return, and it's going to tell you how much you need to save. Or if you have how much you have, it'll tell you how much you can spend, at the end of it. So it's easy to go figure stuff out.
Yeah.
Another example of that, by the way, we're in summer now. My son doesn't go to, like, summer stuff, so for the most part, he's at home. So I keep giving him these things to go do, and I said, every day you're going to have a research project. And yesterday, sometime over the weekend, he said, Dad, I know paper is made from trees, but how do they make paper out of trees? I'm like, I don't know.
Make some.
So yesterday, I said, hey, your research project is you got to go figure out how trees become paper, and you have to be able to tell me that story without looking at it or reading it. So he went, and I swear he came back in less than 5 minutes. And he told me the whole tree to pulp to drying to, flattening to cutting to stamping. That's paper.
Yeah.
Like, he knew it in 5 minutes.
Yes, it's so accessible. There's no excuse anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It reminds me of a piece of advice, or it wouldn't be advice at all. It would just be like something someone said to me years ago. And it was, the more you make, the more you spend. It's like, no. That's poor man economics.
Right.
And that's how all these guys find themselves in that situation where like, oh, yeah, I made $10 today, and I only made $9 yesterday, so better pick up a couple candy bars on the way home.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you're going to stay at the same level if you won't take that, what's the term?
That's surplus. Yeah.
Yeah, that's surplus, and then, readjust yourself on it.
And by the way, tactically speaking, to me, that's why having that plan and not an idea is important. So I have a spreadsheet with every single quarter what I should end at. What my bottom line dollar amount should end at in order for me to get to where I need to get at 50. So when I say have a plan, I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to retire at 50. I need to save, $30,000 a year. No, I mean have an actual plan that will segment that out for you by month or by year or by quarter if you can. Because then you will know in June every year and in August every year and in December every year, man, I'm behind. Or I'm, what? I'm actually ahead. So maybe I can get the nicer car. But
yeah, I saw that Toyota Tundra outside.
It took a couple of good years to be ahead of plan.
But in your defense, and you don't need to be defended, is you had that same truck 10 years ago's model.
That's right. I had a 10-year-old truck. Right?
And it looked great. Like, you can take care of these things and make them last longer than the market would generally allow for them to last. And then when it's time, like, you've saved enough money on doing that to make it work later.
The plan can keep you focused.
Yeah, and so there's one other point that has kind of been sticking in my head for maybe about a year on this, is that people live their lives as though they're only going to be young. Mm-hmm. And so, like, if you think about that, it's kind of true because, like, when you and to use that example of the guy that made $10 and he's like, oh, I need to spend all 10 now. Is like you think you're going to get all of your enjoyment now, but you're going to get older, and you're going to find yourself in a time when you needed that extra dollar, but you didn't waste it. You used it for something that was less necessary earlier on.
Yeah.
And I just think of that as like, what a thing to think about. If you're sitting around thinking about taking your 6th vacation of the year,
yeah,
it's like, what if I would want to take a vacation when I'm 60?
Yeah.
Because when you go to the vacation place, you see a lot of those people.
There's
they
a lot of
plan
60-year-olds. They're planning.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I should think about what life's going to be like when I'm 60. Or like, what kind of things am I going to want to do when I have more time?
Yeah.
And so to counter this would be to say, I've got a friend, he's managing director at a bank you would know.
Okay.
And you might actually even be scared of, if that helps narrow the pool down.
It does.
And he always used to say, my goal in life is to bounce the check to the coroner.
You want to get right to the end.
Right to the end, and just like do everything he wants to do. He's investing in businesses that he doesn't. He cares if they do well, but
sure,
it's not going to be a problem if they don't. And it just like having great experiences, and so that there is another side to the token, and he would have a pretty compelling answer to why. But it's like there is that too. So what do you make of that? If you hear someone say like, "Hey, I don't care about when I'm old. I want to do it now. There will be more chances for me to make dollars in the future."
I have always tried to assume that whatever I make today is the most I'll ever make. Mm-hmm. Like, it could be gone. It could go down. Some tragic economic factor could happen. So it kind of like forces me to think about living within my means without even thinking about living within my means. Like, I don't assume that I'll never have to earn later, but I'm sort of planning in the thought that I may have to, right?
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm not like, if I were to think like, oh, I want to spend it up until I turn 80 because that's the life expectancy. Well, my grandfather lived to 99, So that's 19 years that he needed money for tacos and coffee and hospital stays and stuff. Like,
have you ever lost your wallet when you're out of town, or even in town?
Yes, or been without it unexpectedly. Yeah.
So this is something that it's such a stark realization is like when you're out in the world and you don't have money on you or no cards, or like, I just got this watch and it's got the Apple Pay thing on. So say I lost my wallet or watch too, and like how little the world will respect you with $0.
Yes.
It's like I don't even have access to my Bitcoin or Litecoin or deep brain chain nonsense cryptocurrency.
Go ahead.
It's like, how much worse would it be to be 80 and feeling that?
Yeah, that's right.
Good night. Can you even imagine?
There's a smoothie place by my house that I go to 3 times a week.
Serious?
Seriously, instead
of
lunch.
Are these like nice smoothies, or like
these are like smoothie camp.
Healthy smoothies? Okay.
Like I'll go to the gym and then I'll forego lunch and have a smoothie. Right?
Okay, I thought this was like Chris Ryder going to the ice cream truck.
No, yeah, I'm just having
that would be
a good humor bar instead of lunch. So the other day I go there, and I go there like 3 times a week. These people know me, they know what I order, and I had forgotten my credit cards, my money, like my wallet. But I do have their app on my phone, and I was like, hey, I don't have my thing. Can I pay with the app? And they're like, no. I was like, well, do you take, because I have the same thing. I have Samsung Pay on my watch. They're like, we don't have that. I'm like, so I guess I'm just going to turn around and walk out of here.
Like we know each other, right?
It's $5, right?
And what did they say?
They were like, yeah, sorry.
You serious?
Yeah, of course. There's no mechanism for that for those people. They're like hourly employees.
Well, is the manager there or anything?
I don't know. I wasn't going to go get the manager because I forgot my freaking money.
Well, yeah. If he had like overheard this, he'd have been like, it's Chris Ryder.
Give him the peanut butter power smoothie.
Oops, I accidentally spilled one. Oops, I caught it. Here you go, Chris.
Yeah. No, I didn't get that. To your point, like, I'm there 3 times a week. I'm buying a $5 smoothie. No respect if you don't have money.
Exactly. So it especially if you're out of town, like
yeah.
Oh my goodness! I lost my wallet in Omaha, Nebraska one time. I was out to see, I think it was Union Pacific out there, and I think I ended up leaving it in the hotel room. But I was like, I've lost my wallet, and you go up to the front desk and you're like, "Hi, my name's Lee. I'm staying here. Can I have a room key?" And they're like, "Can I see your ID?" I'm like, "I don't have it." They're like,
"No,
sorry, bud.
You're welcome to sit on the couch in case you find it later."
No, you're not allowed to sit on the couch because you're a vagrant.
Get out.
You're a transient vagrant.
Yeah, in Omaha.
In Omaha, Nebraska. Yep.
That's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, and so I was like, always have your wallet. And since then, I've always, I shouldn't say this on the internet, but I carry a little bit of cash in my bag. Should I run into...
If you ever see this guy,
he's got a little
green on.
Yeah, why would I be scared to say that on the internet? Everyone's got a buck.
Everyone's got a couple bucks.
Yeah, well, I do it specifically for this case. If I leave the wallet in an office or something somewhere, I need to be able to get a cab.
You put it like in your shoe or something?
No, I'm not going to say where I have it.
So what is your retirement philosophy and or plan? I mean, we talked about mine.
Yeah, so the way I view it is I don't know if I'll ever stop working, although it does sound pretty attractive.
There's no way you'll stop working.
Yeah.
You work as a hobby. You
For
created
fun.
a podcast out of nothing. And it's work. And there's work entailed in it.
It is a lot of work. And so to do this, and you hit on an interesting point there, because it's like, in order to do the things you really want to do, and it also really depends on how you're wired, is to say, if I want to do something that's worthwhile, it's going to take a lot of work, because it's not something I can just do every day. Like going to a resort and sitting by the pool and ordering up Diet Cokes all day, I don't like that.
I do.
I want to say that I'm like on board with that, but I really don't like that.
It's everybody's different. I mean, that's fine. You're wrong, but it's fine.
It's fine. Like if that happens like on accident, like if we're at a every software company has a convention, and you're like find yourself by the pool one day, getting diets for free. Yeah, it's like, okay, this is cool. But I wouldn't like plan out to be like, we're going to such and such beach in such and such country, and I'm gonna sit there and order up drinks all day.
Have y'all never done that? Have you and the wife never done a beach vacation, like an all-inclusive resort type thing?
We did for our honeymoon. We went to some island in it's not the Caribbean,
Bahamas.
Is it something
Virgin Islands,
somewhere over there?
Yeah.
And I like the water. I couldn't drink the water.
Yeah.
And I was always nervous about like the food, because you don't think the cooks are back there pouring bottled water into the pans, right?
Yeah, they're using tap water.
Yes, they are.
Right.
And I also found that out firsthand.
Yeah.
When I say firsthand, I mean like I ate the things and it didn't go great.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. I don't want the beach things. And everyone says that they want to go sit on a beach. I'm like, oh, that's great. But recently what we did do, and this is the first time in the 5 years I've been married, is my wife and I went just downtown Austin for a weekend.
Yeah.
And my parents flew down, watched the kids.
That's fun too.
Yeah, and it was way better because I could drink the water. I like kind of had an understanding of what's around me. And there are plenty of things in your own town that you don't know, that you've never been able to do because you just don't have time.
We've done that a couple times. Gone and gotten a hotel downtown, for a night. That is fun.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. And so you were asking me about my view on retiring. So the basic gist of it is I will go out and I will try to, like you said, make as much as I can based on whatever the market is willing to offer. And if I can accumulate enough assets, then I'll finally get to that point where I can essentially, the term is buy your freedom back, because I don't want to have to work. Yeah. But so this is where it gets interesting, is I guess I will anyways, but I don't want to have to. It's an options conversation. It's like I want to have options. Because at some point, and I was talking with this, I've been reading about this a ton, and I've been talking about it with people that I think know what they're talking about, is AI will eventually make us all, like us salespeople and people that do like relational things will just be done someday. So I'm like, all right, make hay while the sun's shining.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you this earlier because you're 42 and you're going to retire at 50. Like, you have an 8-year span where like some of those things might be coming into play when you're 50, and it'll be like, well, I was done anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Good for you.
Yeah. Have fun with the robots.
Right. Exactly. I'll be like shaking hands with robots at meetings and things. But I just like I realized that these things are coming, and I was on a podcast with Joel Chakra, and he is head of marketing for an AI firm, and he's like, yeah, it'll happen eventually. And my initial thought process was like, how much of a bummer would it be to know that's coming and not be ready?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so like we're all sitting here. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
Why? What kind of urgency should that create?
Yeah.
And so I look at that and I just think, man, time to get ready for all kinds of crazy things to come down the pipeline. Because I think, if you look, we've been having this conversation about retirement. It's something, and we've even hit back on like, what would it look like in the 70s to have this plan? Is that since the 70s, the internet came along. And then between the internet coming along and 10 years from now, something else that's completely transformative is coming as well. And it's like, I don't think people are going to be ready for it. And we're going to be the folks like maybe our parents or our parents' parents, like walking over to someone with the phone being like, how do you turn this thing on?
Yeah.
And
we just don't know yet what that is.
We don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And so like I know it's foolish, but sometimes I worry about it. I'm like, what's the future going to look like? And when you and I first met, like I was like deep into this, and I was like, he's like, well, what do you like? I was trying to make conversation or something. I was like, remember this at Top-Golf?
Yeah.
And we were in the parking lot. And he was like, well, what do you read about? And I was like, the future. And you were like, get this guy out of here.
The future. That? Yeah, I do. I read about the future. And we did a whole segment on the podcast about
and nothing's changed. Like I'm still like completely enveloped with what the future.
I thought you meant nothing has actually changed. Like we don't have toilets that analyze our poop.
Wasn't that one of your business ideas?
That was one of my my home of the future ideas.
Yeah, well,
Adam, did you hear this?
I'm intrigued.
There's all these things you can tell about a person's health by analyzing their stool
or any other
bodily fluids. So why doesn't my toilet have some analysis built in where it can say, "Hey, bro, you may need to go to the doctor.
You've got colon cancer."
You flush. You've got colon cancer.
Are you saying from a nutritional standpoint, like
nutritional?
You're not getting enough vitamin C, or your
yes,
body's not, or all the above.
All of the above. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to the doctor and you're like, and they ask for a sample.
That's right.
Like we could figure that out.
Like you give a pee sample every time you go to the doctor for a physical,
it's
right?
Like you would eliminate the need for as many checkups. And if you're getting that checkup every time, which for some people that's like 2 or 3 times a day.
I'm trademarking this thing. It's the. I'm still working on the name. I just now thought to trademark it, but it's some kind of rider toilet. Smart toilet.
Rider toilet?
Smart toilet.
You should call it the rider toilet.
The rider toilet. Or just the rider.
It's like a riding lawnmower.
Isn't the guy who like invented the toilet, wasn't his last name Crapper?
That's one of the most
Is that not true?
Yeah, that's not true at all. Klein will know. Klein, you want to dial that up for us?
I think there might be something to that.
It's not Crapper.
I think it might be, and crap came from his name. So, like, in the future, people are like, oh, I got to go take a rider.
And you will be forever.
That's where the John came from.
Yeah,
maybe that's
John
it.
Something.
All right, maybe it's John Crapper.
I don't know.
Right.
Are you pulling it up on this screen?
Yeah.
The screen below that one is duplicated.
This is so impressive, Lee.
Thomas Crapper.
Ha! The flushing toilet was invented by John Harrington.
Ah, yes.
I thought they had the John.
Vindicated.
Right?
Click on that Thomas Crapper Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's got to mean something.
Because it says Thomas Crapper was a plumber who founded Thomas Crapper and Company in London. Do I have to read this, or can they read this?
They can't read it,
okay.
But I can pull it up on the screen if it's anything worth.
He was noted for the quality of his products, received several royal warrants. That sounds like a good
Look at this.
thing.
It says crapper on the man covers.
Yeah. So he does have something to do with. He was a plumber.
But it was Harrington that invented the toilet.
Okay.
Okay. Well, this has descended.
He was a sanitary engineer for sewer system and stuff.
This has descended like the quality of the discussion. I'm sorry. I knew it would happen. Dude.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I know.
Well, we're talking about toilets. I mean, there's nothing closer to potty mouth humor than toilets.
All right, let's get back to the topic.
I'm completely kidding, by the way. We can take this wherever we want. Good.
So, to your point of like being prepared,
mm-hmm.
I think we were also sort of talking about career and career movement and preparation for that, expectation of that.
Yeah, so like I look at your resume and I think like this guy has worked at all the big shops at the right time. So like Dell was the first one. How long were you at Dell?
So, and this is where I'll kind of correct you because on this idea, I was at Dell for 14 years.
Okay.
And I would say like the thing that I knew nothing when I started at Dell. I was a dumb guy. And I really didn't know like what a modem was or a hard drive. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and we're answering phones, building computers and stuff. But what was great about Dell was that it was a big company. They rewarded the people who performed and who had, you know, the right work ethic and attitude, and so I progressed there, you know, for a while, and then I was frankly scared to leave. You know, this is the only home I knew,
right?
And so
that's a very prevalent attitude.
Yeah, and I think that if I could go back to my younger self, I would say, don't hold on to that so hard. It's, you know, the same thing that would make you successful there can make you successful somewhere else, and it's that willingness to leave that can be rewarding, both, you know, financially as well as, you know, job wise. I mean,
get to do new things.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think being conscious of you, I know you were talking about this in a little bit different manner, but you know, these things are coming down the road, like we got to be prepared for that stuff. You know, it's the same thing in a current job that you're in. Like what's coming up? Like what's the future of you, of that company, of that job?
Mm-hmm.
Where are there opportunities to learn more, to position yourself better, to potentially leave the company? But it's a different environment than it was in, you know, like 2000. People didn't change jobs every 2 years.
Right.
It wasn't as bad as it was, like, you know, our parents worked at one company for, you know, 70 years until they got their pension.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more common these days, and I would just say embrace that, because that's where you have some great opportunity.
Right. So like if you're looking at your resume, you're back end loaded with Dell because you were there for 14 years, but then you were at Tableau, and then you were at a great startup called Applause.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you'd even call Applause a startup anymore, but then obviously Amazon, and that was voted the #1 company that people want to work at a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So like breaking in those doors is like you've arrived essentially as far as like where you can go.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't change the overall principle that if things start getting odd here, or I'm not getting my skills to the point where the market will respect me as much or more next year, then, you know, you've got to be ready for that.
Yeah, and I think it's about, I mean, not to kind of play on the same theme, but having an idea of what you really want at the end of it. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people that are really good at their jobs and have completely different ideas of what they want to get from that. Like I've, you know, been clear my motivation is to retire at 50. So the things I care about most are the things that get me there.
Right.
There are other people who want to be CEOs. There are other people who want to start a cupcake business, and so they're doing kind of the day job to fund this. There are other people who want to be, you know, sales leaders. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you could want to do, but having an idea of what that is, you know, as soon as you can figure that out,
right,
can really help kind of guide you there.
Yeah, and so there's a couple personalities that I think would hear that and take it differently. So there's the guy that will never know what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Like I've seen guys retire and they're like they never got the light bulb turned on around what their mission was. It was just like, I did this because it was what I was best at. I don't really want to do anything else, so like I just used the tools and the opportunities at hand, and that was that. And then there's like the people that know what they want to do and they won't do it because they're scared.
Yeah.
And both of those are kind of bogus, but they happen all the time.
Yeah.
And so you do have to figure out a way for yourself to think, all right, I'm not doing what I want to do, or if I surveyed the market, I could be worth more, and that would allow me to then go and do the thing I want to do. Like, it should be all circular.
Yeah, but it doesn't all have to be spectacular either. I think sometimes when people think that they don't know what they want to do, it's because they feel this pressure to have some grand scheme of, well, I have to go start a business, or I have to go do what I'm passionate about and save the dolphins. It doesn't have to be that. I mean, even if it's that, I just want to do this. I want a simple life. I want to do the thing I'm best at or pretty good at that'll pay me the most money, then that's what you want to do. And I want to be home on Thursday nights to have a date night with the wife, and I want to go to every Saturday thing with my kid. Those may be the decisions you make. It's not necessarily this is the end goal of my career and I got to get to that point.
Right.
It can be all the stuff in between that just allows you to kind of have a balanced life.
If you were giving advice to Chris Ryder when he was starting at Dell 20 years ago now? 25?
20.
20?
Yeah, almost 19.
If you were giving advice from your current self to your former self, what would it be? And this isn't in the notes, so...
Yeah, I think it would just be don't be afraid to take risks earlier. I was an inside sales manager, so I managed, 8, 10, 12, inside sales reps. And I went to the office every single day, and I managed these people, and I was responsible for their performance. And I did a good job. I was respected. And I had a friend who had come from that background as well, and he was like, hey, you should go out into the field and be a field sales rep. You'd be great at it. You'd love it. It's a better quality of life. Make more money. And I'm like, I was scared to fail. I'd scared to leave home.
It's like we got a good thing going on right now.
Yeah, I'm doing a good job. I'm not that interested in the money. I'm just interested in the quality of life. I don't want all that pressure. And so I put that off for probably 2 years longer than I should have. I should have done it earlier. And then I also should have been open to other things earlier, because I had gotten to a point that I wasn't going to progress any farther at Dell. So I should have been open to leaving earlier. But I don't know that I have regrets, but that'd be advice. Be open to taking some risks.
Yeah, so one really common thing that you hear from folks now is if you stay at one company too long, and I'm talking 20 years long, the company will give you incremental raises to go up higher in the company.
Yeah.
And they will never match what the rest of the market would do to
They'll
get
never
you
keep
to come
up.
up.
That's
They'll
absolutely
never
right.
keep up. And so it's pretty common knowledge, and if you haven't heard this, it's common knowledge, and you should hear this and remember this, is that you will eventually, when you're climbing this ladder, have to leave, and you can even come back in order to be paid a market rate. And so what would you say to companies that should know this, to say, all right, we've got people that we really like and they know our thing, and we've trained them everything they know. We trained you from Chris Ryder at 24 to what he is now, and obviously you're not working at Dell right now.
I don't think that there's much that, well, I don't know.
Is there anything they could do? What would you, if you were on that strategy committee to retain top talent, what would you do?
I don't think it's feasible for that, because the day I left there, having been there for 14 years, even though I wasn't compensated at what the market would pay me outside of there, I was still compensated higher than what they could pay someone else to do a very similar job.
Okay.
So if I've been there 14 years and I'm a whatever level, and I leave, someone is itching to get to that level that's been there for 4 years, for 5 years, and they can pay him 30% less, and he's eager and smart and capable.
Trying to prove something.
Yeah, and he's got to learn a couple of things that maybe I picked up, but it's not unlearnable.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, because usually what you'd hear people say is, yeah, they just got to understand the environment. They've got to invest in their people. I
don't think so. I mean, I think they invested in me. And I always kind of look at a job like an education. Right. So I took something from Southwest Texas State University that I can then go apply. I don't feel like they owe me more than that, Right. This was a paid internship, and I parlayed that into another job, which I parlayed into another job, which I parlayed into another job.
Which ultimately parlays into your epic retirement.
That's right. So I don't fault a company for saying we've been paying this guy for 8 years or 10 years or 14 years. And even though you're right, the market is going to pay them potentially more or value them more. That's where I think it's kind of a win-win. Like it was great for me to leave because I got to go into a better job that would pay me more. And they got to hire somebody to do my job for less. Yeah,
that's a great call. And it's like there is that itch. So like I've been feeling that itch at some of the companies that I've been at, thinking, man, I wish, don't hold this against me, I wish that guy would go somewhere else above me so that I can take that spot.
Yeah.
And I can parlay what I've been doing. So that's interesting. Spurs another topic in my brain is, so you and I have both been in sales for a long, long time. And Klein, you travel a ton. Tell me about the worst travel story you've ever had, because I just got back from Toronto the other night, and I'll tell you my story.
Okay,
I'll see if I can't top yours.
Okay, the one that comes to mind...
Everyone's got one, by the way.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is so you know this, I used to... I had a very unique job at Dell, where I did...
Yes, this is my favorite thing, by the way.
Yeah, where I did our on-air presentations at QVC.
Yes.
So I did, for several years, I did almost all of our on-air stuff.
This is a face for TV.
I'm glad you got the expensive camera on me. You're getting your money's worth today.
Hey, you're the esteemed guest.
So, May was Dell month on QVC at the time. And I lived in Round Rock, and this film's outside of Philadelphia.
Round Rock, Texas, suburb of Austin, Texas. Yep.
Thank you. And so during May, I would be back and forth there
and where is there?
There's outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
In Westchester, Pennsylvania. Absolutely beautiful part. It seems like Philly gets a bad rap, but Westchester, that area is just gorgeous.
I've been to Philly a little more often than usual.
You ever go west? Just go west. Sometime you got 2 hours to kill, just drive west.
I've never had 2 hours to kill.
So anyway,
we should do a podcast from Westchester.
We should. I'll tell you a funny story too about flying into Philly. So I was going there every week for this month, and I think during that month I made back and forth trips. I think I made 11 trips there. It was bananas.
Right.
Because I didn't want to stay the entire month there. I have a wife and kid, and so I'd come home for 2 days, and then I'd fly back out. And then I'd come home, and it was awful.
Klein, can you pull up Chris's QVC days on YouTube? I know one's out there that floats around at the companies we go to.
Yeah, there's that mommy cast one that always floats around when I start somewhere. But there was... it was the very end of this month. I was absolutely exhausted. I had a couple of flight issues, and at the time I was flying American Airlines. And, I get there, and I decided to take the early flight so I can get home. I know I haven't had any sleep, but I get there for an 8 a.m. flight, and it's delayed an hour. And so, I'm sitting there, and then it gets pushed back, an hour. Mm-hmm. And then it gets pushed back 2 hours. And just
that's the slippery slope. That flight's going to get canceled for sure.
But just cancel it, so we can all go try to find another flight.
You can.
Yeah, well, I didn't.
Okay.
And so we ended up, it was delayed. It ended up going out, but it's all these garbage excuses about it. And so finally, we get the flight out, and I send I think I sent a note to them saying, I'm never flying American Airlines again. I'm sorry, this is awful.
Right.
Yeah, and they wrote me back, and they said, we're going to upgrade you to, and here's 50,000 extra miles. I'm like,
50,000? Really?
They'll never get used. I'll never fly again.
So you were real salty.
Real salty.
Okay.
And I think I've only flown American in the 8 years since then, maybe once. It has to be the only... I hope they're not a sponsor, and I'm on here dogging them.
No, they are not a sponsor of the Unconsumed Podcast.
That was my worst, because we broke up that day. Tell me about your Toronto story.
Yeah, so I was in Toronto last week. I've been in Toronto once a week for a few weeks now. And so I'm flying out of Toronto, out of Austin, there's not really a good direct flight, so I have to connect. And so I also don't fly out of the country that much, so I'm not like one of those world entry guys that like the TSA for international. I'm not the international guy. I fly Southwest in Texas. Like we'll do the Texas triage is what I call Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, with Austin in the middle. Like that, I can run that. But now I'm going up to Toronto a good bit, and so I'm flying United. And I get up there, I'm doing the customs thing. It's brutal. It takes about an hour and a half to get through customs, which in Toronto, it's a very international city. So if you are flying from Japan to, I don't know, somewhere where you would connect through Toronto, it's because you don't want to have to enter the United States, and so you can just hop in and go over there, and that's all the people you're around. So I'm in this line. There's this lady in the back of the line, and she is pleading her case to the rest of the line that's been sitting here for an hour and a half.
That she should go ahead.
That she should go ahead because she's going to be late. And so she kind of like barges up to the front, and she starts asking people one at a time to like those little turnstiles back from me, that if she can go ahead of them. So she's like making a sales pitch to each one of these people, and slowly people are like, hurry up, hurry up. She gets to me, I'm like, I don't want to hear it, go ahead. And then she gets to the very front of the line, and she's like, there's lots of people back there that are going to miss their flight because they're at the end of the line. And she's like, holds her hand up at the front, and she's like, come on.
No.
And so like all these people come up to the front of the line, and I'm in the line, I'm second in line, and it's another half hour because all these people come up there. And I'm like, I'm going to miss my flight now. And I like sprint to the gate, get there, try not to make a big fuss, and then I do my time in Toronto. But then here's where it gets sticky. On the way back, I'm like, I've had enough of customs. This is brutal. I'll do it one more time. So I'm going through the line in security. This lady puts her bag into the scanner, and she didn't close the handle, so it gets stuck in the machine. The machine is stuck for a good 25 minutes. Every security agent it's like pulling on it. There's this one guy who's got his whole head and torso in the machine. His legs are sticking out, kicking, pulling on this
he's
thing.
Stuck in there.
Close. And so then finally, I'm sitting there and I'm like, surely this has happened before. Like this can't be something that doesn't happen in the security line. Manager walks out. He presses the reverse button.
Oh my gosh.
The guy that's in there scrolls out with the bag that's stuck, and so I'm like, all right, fair enough, let's move on. I get to customs, goes very smoothly. I should have known that this was like a red herring. So I go through, it takes about 20 minutes, I get my passport scanned, game on, we're going back to Texas. And if you've been out of country, it feels very good to come back to Texas. I always listen to George Strait's Take Me to Texas when I'm flying home. Anyways, I get to go on the flight. They're like, this flight is delayed an hour. This flight is delayed 2 hours. And I'm like, all right, that's not happening. I need to go find a way to change my flight. So I get changed to go to Chicago. The flight does end up getting canceled. So I'm like,
you won.
I was right.
Feel vindicated.
I'm ahead of the curve here. So they're like, all right, we can connect you through to Chicago. I get on the flight to Chicago. The baggage things are closed. Everyone's seated. They're like, bad weather in Chicago. Everyone off.
Oh my God.
And so I get off the plane. When you go out, when you're actually in the plane, you technically leave the airport. And so they send you out the exit. Now I get to go through security and customs again.
No.
Yes. So I have to go back out, and then I go get another ticket. And there's the way that, you know how when you're being delayed on a flight, they'll always try to do that thing where they're like, yeah, they'll give you, the other airline will give you a hotel, or the other airline will give you, a voucher for money or something, or food or something. So I'm like, I'm not playing this game today. So I'll make this short, but here's where it gets really good.
You're not even the good part?
No. Well, it's the denouement works out pretty well with this little travel story. Is that I finally get on a flight to Dallas, which is about 4 hours from where I live in Austin. Yeah. And they are like, the only flight from Dallas is in the morning, so you'd have to get a hotel and all that stuff. And I'm done being on the road. So I finally get back to to Dallas at about 12 o'clock, and there's one flight out left, and it's an American flight. And I sprint over to the American desk, and I'm like, can I get on this flight? And the lady sits there and is typing for like 2 or 3 minutes while I'm standing there and doesn't even look at me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, so don't be one of those guys in the airport line that's like making a fuss or like.
And that's what they want. They want you to like be beholden. They're like have all the power on their keyboard.
They've got all the power.
They're clicking away like they're writing a novel.
They're doing something back there. And so finally she looks up and she's like, how may I help you? And I'm like,
oh my gosh.
In like kind of a way where you're like,
yes.
She knew what she was doing, and maybe she like was checking her email again to make sure that she knew that I knew that she was in control.
Right.
And I was like, I need to get on this flight. Is there any way we can make it happen? Like, I have my credit card out ready to go. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, the door just closed. I'm like, no way. And so at this point, I'm done traveling. This whole fiasco has lasted from about 1 in the afternoon. It is now a little after midnight. I go outside, I call a guy from Uber, and he drives me from Dallas to Austin.
You take an Uber?
I took an Uber from Dallas to Austin, 4-hour drive, and the guy pulls up and he's like, so I'm not sure I have this right. Like, are you going, is this a 170-mile trip? And I was like, yes. Are you into that? And he's like, yes. He was thrilled.
Yeah. That's a big ticket for him.
Oh, huge ticket. So he's like, yeah, I love driving at night. I was like, thank goodness, because I'm going to fall asleep.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this random guy's car, and we're like going through middle of nowhere, Texas. I'm like pretty thankful I didn't get murdered. But I got home at 3 a.m., and I'm back working in like 3 hours. So, dude, that's my worst travel story.
That'll swear you off of traveling.
Oh, my goodness. And it was just such a long day. But there are people that travel internationally, and you see these people in the airport all the time. They're sleeping on the chairs.
Yeah.
So, like, there's our stories that are worse, and we will likely encounter them. You too, Klein. Before it's all over, we'll be that guy sleeping on the chair at the airport.
I saw a great meme, I think, the other day about, like, airports are strange places. It's perfectly acceptable to drink at 7 a.m. and sleep on the floor.
Yes, it is.
Oh, I'm in an airport.
Shocked.
It's 8. Let me get a beer. You don't do that anywhere else.
I'm always shocked by how many people are sitting at the bar at airports at 7 a.m.
At any given time. Well, what is it? Why is that? Why is it
They must be coming home from something, or I don't know.
Yeah, but you're always coming home from something. I mean, right?
I guess they just figure they're going to get a cab or something. I don't know. Maybe they're that responsible. Maybe they're that irresponsible.
Church, you don't have a beer on the way.
I don't know, man. So, is there any? We got to hit what's grinding our gears as a retrospective edition. So, for those of you that don't know, Chris and I did this podcast before, and at the end of every episode, we would have a little segment called "What's Grinding Chris?" Or no, "What's Annoying Lee and Chris?"
This week.
"What's Grinding My Gears" is a Family Guy.
That's right.
Thing, and so we didn't steal it. We're making it. It's
our own.
Yes, it's ours.
Right. That I am loaning to you. It's sort of like when Letterman went to CBS, and there was this big fiasco about whether or not he would get to take the top 10 list.
Really?
Yeah. And there was some negotiation between NBC and CBS about him being able to take the... So anyway.
And did he get it? Because Letterman did top 10 for years.
He did. He did it on the CBS show as well.
By the way, you seen his new app? Not his new app, his new show called...
I have. My Next Guest Needs No Introduction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's been episodes I loved. Have you watched it at all?
No, I saw Seinfeld was on it, and I love Seinfeld.
Seinfeld's not on.
Not yet?
Mm-mm.
I could swear I saw... Okay, well, I must have saw something that I thought it was that, and it's not.
Howard Stern.
Howard Stern
is on the latest one. Barack Obama was on the first one. That was really good.
Uh-huh.
He had George Clooney on, Tina Fey, Malala, the woman who from the Middle East who got the Nobel Peace Prize, who was almost killed.
Speaking of which, real quick, I work at a company that's based in London, and if you had to...
G'day, mate.
That's Australia.
I know, that's my favorite joke when people...
Okay.
Because people always correct you, and I'm like, yeah, I know.
I know, obviously. I fell right in.
Now, the only time it doesn't work...
I know stuff about international anything.
Is if someone... that works for any country, by the way. Oh, South Africa. G'day, mate. And they'll always correct you. Right. Always. And if they're from Australia, you got to say, "Hello, governor." So those are your two options.
Good ideas.
So Royal screw it up, and that's fine.
That's right.
I love it. So they had the royal wedding, and it was a big deal. And I guess they spent like one of my peers that lives in London, or he's from London. Mm-hmm. He was saying it cost $40 million to put the whole thing on, and $36 million of it was security. You believe that? But then this led to the conversation of if there was a royal wedding for the United States, who would be the queen?
Oprah.
See, I thought when you said Tina Fey, I was like, I'll take Tina Fey, the comedy queen.
No, I think it's Oprah. Everybody loves Oprah.
I don't really like Oprah.
I don't think you love Oprah, but
generally
speaking, people love Oprah.
Do you love Oprah?
No.
No. So, do you love Oprah?
I don't know that I love Oprah. I think she is widely beloved.
Do you like Tina Fey?
I do like Tina Fey quite a bit.
Do you like Tina Fey?
I like the Saturday Night Live Tina Fey.
But
so that's 3 for 3. We beat Oprah handily.
Well, in our extremely representative sample size
in
here
this room
of white men sitting in your house.
Well, I hate to hit you with some statistics, but most people in the United States are white people. Well, and half of them are men.
Almost. At any rate, almost half of them are men. The women are a little bit more than half.
It's 51-49, right?
Yeah.
Worldwide, though. That's
almost.
Not just white men in America. That's not just white people in America.
Okay, well, we can pull out some stats if you want to get down to business here. At any rate, that show is pretty good, but it's also can get a little... The George Clooney one was real interesting, too.
Okay.
I love that long-form interview.
Right.
Jay-Z was another one.
Okay, that'd be cool.
I thought it was going to be cooler than it was. I thought it was kind of boring.
Really?
Yeah.
It just feels like you could make... It would take like a guy of my caliber to make that even okay.
But
then you get Letterman, and he's like, he should be world class.
I thought it would be. I was really looking forward to the Jay-Z one. I thought, with the exception, he did describe kind of like some history of MCs and like what makes a good rapper versus, you know, a marginal one, or like the 3 kind of things that make someone a good rapper. That was interesting.
Do you remember offhand what they were?
Yeah, he said, you know, there's guys who have like great flow, like great kind of diction, the way they say words. He's like Snoop, for instance, and this is the example he used. He can say 1, 2, 3 into the 4, and he's like, and it sounds amazing, and all he's doing is counting. Like,
right, and it's like it's been a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah.
If you said that like you said that, you wouldn't need to attach the name.
That's right. You know exactly who it is, and Snoop was like that from the beginning. I mean, you know, when he was just coming on to Dr. Dre stuff. Dr. Dre doesn't have like a great flow, but he's a great musician. You know, he like puts beats together really well.
Right.
And then you have the guys that are great poets, like, you know, Tupac and Eminem, like that have just masterful wordplay. And then you have people that, you know, I think this is the point he was making, that he's someone who has all 3. Like he can do all 3. But
naturally.
But I think that if, you know, you're talking about like the great, like him, or, you know, Biggie, like those are the guys who kind of put all that together.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That was what I took from it, and I'm an idiot. Also, the other thing I thought it was really interesting about that was, so, you know, MC typically stands for Master of Ceremonies, and I've always wondered, why are rappers called MCs? And he said that originally the DJ was the thing. So you'd have a DJ at a party or a dance or a club, and he's spinning records and getting everybody dancing, and then they brought along like an MC to kind of keep people engaged in what the DJ was doing. He's like, hey everybody, check out the DJ, that kind of thing. Right. And so that guy kind of developed his own flow and, you know, rhymes and stuff, and that's where rapping came from.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Well, it's good to put a start to that, because I actually stumbled across like an old, the old Run DMC.
Yeah. From
like the original stuff, and I was like, I wonder where this all kind of came from. And then when you find that, you're like, there were things before that too. Yeah. Another thing that YouTube can educate you on in about 10 minutes.
Well, and he talked about all those early, he's like, that's why all those early acts were like DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Run DMC. Like that was, I think Run was the DJ, right? DJ Jazzy Jeff was the DJ. And so it was always like a DJ and a rapper. And nowadays there's not really kind of the DJ aspect to it.
get
Is
calls.
my wife calling you too?
No.
What's going on over there?
So there was one thing that we were leading into with, and I disrupted you with the Seinfeld, or the Letterman thing, and it is...
What's bothering me?
Yes, as our round out, we'll finish up with this.
So mine this week is I'm actually annoyed with myself.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not, it finally happened. I'm annoyed by everything. It's bound to happen at some point.
So for those of you that don't know, Chris Ryder is a world-class complainer and a world-class venter of specific types of anger, and it comes out in the most. It's one of my favorite things to behold. So this is a treat for me.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate you saying that. I don't know about world class, but I try.
Nope, I have made the judgment. Do the eyes have it?
Yes.
Okay, we have it.
I cannot exhale without giving the impression that I'm really mad, and I think it's my fault. But like if I'm around my wife and it's quiet and I'm like tired and I go. She said, "What's the matter with you?" I'm like, "No, nothing."
I have that same thing.
And I can't even convince her that my exhale is so filled with anger that I can't even convince her that I'm not actually angry. Like, no, I'm just tired. I was just sitting down. Well, whatever. I'm tired too. I got to work too.
Right.
So I need to figure out how to exhale without giving the impression that I'm really angry at something. I'm annoying myself with that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I do that too, and people around me are like, "What's wrong with him?" Like,
it's just breathing. We're just breathing.
I'm tired and like I'm just trying to work it out. I'm trying to get to the end of the day here.
Yeah.
Cut me some slack, kind of thing.
It's funny how breathing can take such a negative connotation.
Yeah, and it's like it's one of those things that's like it's not quite not a verbal cue because it is auditory, but it conveys that you're like done with the situation. Yeah.
And that's not always what it is. Sometimes I'm just breathing.
Sometimes I'm just exhaling because I've been wound up pretty tight all day.
Yeah. I got one other.
Let's have it.
Do you have one?
I'd have to think of it.
Do you ever get you ever go get a Mexican martini and they bring it in that shaker glass and then you strain it into the glass?
No, but I've seen it.
And every time they bring it, they go like, okay, be careful because the lid will come off. You have to hold the lid when you turn. Like how they've been serving these things for like 25 years. How can they not make the thing where it doesn't come off? It's got a screw on it. How is that the only screw in the world that will come off if you're not actually holding it? Mm-hmm. And what's the point of having the screw top if it's going to fall off anyway?
Right. Well, that's one of those things that's like traditional and people don't want to change it because it won't be the traditional way. Like think coffee cups.
Yes.
And this is maybe a poor example, but they have like that standard 12-ounce coffee cup, and if you go on your Keurig machine and you put 12 ounces, it will go to the absolute brim.
Yeah.
It's like we could have changed this a ton of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should still be ceramic, but it should be 13 ounces.
Right.
Or it should be 14 and a half so you have room for cream or something like that. But we just do it because that's the standard mode, and when you get a coffee cup, you expect it to be like that. And so it's maybe it's not the greatest example because you see, like I've got a coffee cup right here, 16 ounces. But on the internet because I wanted a cup that was 16 ounces.
But if you hit the 16-ounce thing on your Keurig, it's going to fill it up.
Doesn't have a 16-ounce option. 12 is the max.
Oh, 12.
Yep. So I'll tell you what's annoying me is things that are overhyped. So like if you go to a new city, and I'll use the one that's the most famous in Texas here is like In-N-Out. Mm-hmm. Like people love In-N-Out.
But that's a transplant now.
Well, I know, but I'm talking about like people will go to.
Now that's what they're saying. Yeah, because it's not a historically Texas thing. Yeah.
Right. So they have it here now, but we've had Whataburger here forever.
Right.
And which is like if you're not from Texas, it's like Texas's version of In-N-Out.
Yeah.
Right? And you know what In-N-Out is. So I was in Toronto on this fiasco trip, which I took too long to explain, but it was I was sitting in the airport, and for years I've got a lot of Canadian friends, and they're like, Tim Hortons is the best.
Oh, I don't even know about Tim Hortons.
You don't know what Tim Hortons is? Mm-mm. It's the Canadian Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, they got donuts, they got like little breakfast sandwiches and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to use this chance to have Tim Hortons coffee and a donut. And I get up to the counter, and I'm like, I would like one large coffee, and I would like 1 chocolate donut. And they were like, okay. They bring it back to me. I'm very excited because it's been a long day. I'm going to get a little reprieve. And it's no better than Dunkin' Donuts or anything you'd get at a gas station or the grocery store. It's just like maybe worse.
You're like, damn it, it's a donut and black coffee.
It's like,
why did everybody say this is so good?
It's nothing special at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so this is how this day is going to go.
And it was a harbinger.
And then it did.
Of things to come.
And then it went exactly that way. So, Chris, thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, this is so much fun.
I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah,
we will
glad
do
to
it
be back.
more often. And